AITAH, because I didn't invite my father to my wedding, because years ago he told me I was no longer part of his family. My dad cheated on my mom and had his new family. I always felt like an extra in his. When I was 18, he kicked me out of the house. Now he reached out and wanted to walk me down the aisle when he learned about my marriage next month, but I refused and chose my stepdad instead. I'm 28F and will be getting married next month. I didn't invite my father to the wedding, but now he's trying to get in touch. I think I need to explain the context because it all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents got divorced after my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother. After that, I spent most of my time with my mom, but during holidays and vacations, I stayed with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, 20M, was born, and whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mom had to move abroad for work. This period was one of the hardest of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an extra in the house, someone who didn't really belong there. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever he went out, he would only take my stepmother and Jake, never inviting me. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me that he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake, so I was left home alone. This had already become a pattern. Trips to the beach, zoos, or other outings always included just my stepmother and Jake while I was left behind. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over. He said teenagers together only cause trouble, and because he was controlling, he would call the house phone at random times to check if I was home. He also had a trusted neighbor who would keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have any visitors. When I turned 16, living with him, the feeling of being an extra only got worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion and sense of abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion at work and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I was excited, thinking I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it would just be to celebrate Jake's 10th birthday. I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and that he shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how I'd felt over the past years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying that I lived with him rent-free, which was a lie since my mom sent money to support me, and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated, and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Luckily, a friend lived nearby, and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, and some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mom stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29M. He was a senior, and we soon connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, though at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media, but I rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years, but haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think one of my relatives must have told my dad about the wedding, because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out to me through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. In the past, she has asked my husband to place Amazon orders for her because she doesn't have a Prime account. He told her that I have a Prime account, so he would relay the message. I would then place the order and text her the tracking info. I don't know if this is where her being shy comes into play, but it would be the same approach every time. She would call him directly, ask him, and he would say, "I'll ask OP. She has Prime, I do not." About a month after our last interaction, she called him to ask him to place an order. I was baffled. After knowing that I am very uncomfortable with how she treats me, she can't even send an apology text. Yet, how is she so comfortable asking me for favors? I told him exactly that, and he said he understood. He would ask her to reach out. A few more weeks pass, and I get an email that reads, "Thank you for your order," from Amazon. I asked him if he placed the order on my phone, and he said yes. She sent the money, so I had to. I told him that I was not okay with him going behind my back to do something I was not comfortable with. He said that she asked him to do her a favor, not me. But really, she goes through him to avoid asking me. I told him that at this point, my issue is no longer with how she treats me. I am okay with not seeing or speaking to each other moving forward. I feel like I've been begging her to be nice to me, and I'm done. My issue is now with him. He is responsible for making sure that his sister respects his wife, and he has done a poor job at that. AITAH for telling my husband that if she doesn't want to respect me, that is okay, but when our baby comes, his sister will not be having a relationship with them. This may be a hot take, but I don't believe that anybody who disregards the well-being of the mother throughout her pregnancy should have access to the baby just because they're family. The other things I could let go of if she was empathic during this time. His other siblings check in on me and the baby often and are very supportive and encouraging. I would have the same feelings towards any of my family members if they treated me or my husband that way. Sorry for such a long-winded post. Let me know if you have any questions that will give better context. Thank you. Relevant comments. Commenter, change all your passwords and don't stay logged in. Also needs to speak quite seriously with her husband. He's enabling sister's treatment of her. OP, he's protecting his peace over yours and your child's. If he doesn't step up before that child's born, it's only going to get worse and likely ruin your relationship. Sister needs to grow up or FO. I definitely wouldn't allow her in my house or in any of my subscriptions. NTA, get some boundaries. If you don't do it for you, do it for your child. When they see what she's doing, they're going to be so confused. Commenter, if your child happens to be a girl, she will treat your child worse than she treats you. She has been spoilt being the only girl. She hates you even more now you, having already stolen one of her loyal subjects, are now pregnant and are holding the attention from all the other subjects of her court. Let your husband know until she grows up and shows you respect. She will have no contact with your child, and if need be, that will include all his siblings and parents, as you will not allow contact with anyone that will give her access to your child when you're not around. Thank you for sticking around until the end. If you liked our videos, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with our latest content. Have a wonderful day. I was surprised, both that he had messaged me and that he genuinely thought he would walk me down the aisle. I responded, saying he wouldn't be walking me down the aisle because my stepfather would, and that the wedding would be small, just for my close family. After that, I blocked him. After blocking him, and inspired by reading Reddit stories, I expected calls, messages, and even letters full of insults, like ungrateful or spoiled. However, the only thing I received was a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we still have contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't copy the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived a normal life with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mom and stepfather, he started feeling regret. He wanted to talk to me, but his pride held him back. He only decided to reach out now because he realized that his pride got him nowhere and that he wanted to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after so many years feels a bit too convenient. AITAH, for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding despite his apology? Note, my stepfather is an amazing person. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful as well. When he found out that my father hadn't taken me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, along with my mother and sisters. This, and 1,000 other reasons why I want to walk down the aisle with him. Edit 1. People are asking why my mom and stepfather left me with my dad and what their jobs are. My mom works as a programmer and managed to get a job abroad. She thought it was best to accept it, especially since she wanted to save up a good amount of money to cover college expenses and for the future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing his postdoctoral work at the time. The first person to talk to me was my older sister, stepsister. 2 days after I was kicked out, she came to see me and even stayed for a few days, which I can barely remember because I was just crying. But I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was almost done with classes and final exams. So my friend and bridesmaid let me stay at her house. Her parents helped me gather my things and even set up the guest room for me. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. Your bio father's regrets are his problem, not yours. Your real father, your stepfather, the man who treated you as a father should, is the one who should walk you down the aisle. That other guy is just a bad memory to put behind you. Commenter, your dad made his choices and completely shut you out for years, treating you like an outsider in his own family. Now that he wants to play the dad card because you're getting married, it feels more like a convenient afterthought than genuine remorse. You've built a loving and supportive family with your mom and stepfather who actually care about you. It's totally valid to want them by your side on such a significant day. Your happiness matters, and you deserve to celebrate with those who truly appreciate you. Commenter, I bet it's because news of the engagement has spread, and people have started asking him about his daughter's wedding. OP says he seemed genuine, but the only thing I can picture him being excited about here is finding ways to make this about himself again. If I were OP, I would totally keep NC. It really doesn't seem worth whatever bullshit he's going to spew at the wedding and reception. If he truly were remorseful, then he wouldn't be assuming shit. He would be reaching out and telling OP how sorry he was, that he missed her, and that he wants to be there for her on the wedding and meet with her again beforehand. He would understand that it takes time to build a relationship back again and accept being able to attend the wedding as a guest. The wedding. Story 2. AITAH for telling my husband that his sister will not meet our baby if she does not start to respect me. First time here, but I really need an outside opinion. Bear with me. My husband's sister has been cold towards me for the past 2.5 years that I've known her. I feel that I have gone above and beyond to be kind to her and make her comfortable with me. She can be shy, which is his excuse for her behavior, but we'll get into that. She does not speak to me unless spoken to. Not a hi or a bye, even at my own apartment. When my husband and I eloped, I didn't get a congratulations from her. On my birthday, she called my husband to chat. He mentioned that we were on our way to dinner for my birthday. No happy birthday from her. When we found out that I was pregnant, she was the first person my husband told. I didn't hear from her. She came to visit us 3 weeks later, again, walked into our apartment without acknowledging me, and did not congratulate me or ask about the pregnancy at all while she was here. To add to that, I was extremely sick with a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum. It's like morning sickness, but on steroids. I had been in the ER days prior and continued to vomit every hour. She was aware of this before coming over. There was no acknowledgement from her, and I was treated like I didn't exist. In the past, I have asked my husband if he was aware of any issues she had with me. Maybe I said or did something that she didn't like and didn't know. He said, "No, why would you think that?" I told him how I felt and mentioned the things above. This was before the pregnancy. He said that he was sorry that I felt that way and that he would talk to her about it. He also mentioned that she was a very shy person, so it is most likely unintentional. He's right, she is not the most outgoing person, but I can't just chalk it up to that. We've been in plenty of social settings together. I've seen how she greets and acknowledges other people. Even strangers. She doesn't just lack manners or social cues because she's shy. I think it's a poor excuse. Anyway, he lets me know that they spoke, and she doesn't dislike me and didn't realize that she was being rude to me, but will make a conscious effort to be more respectful going forward. The next time that we see her, we visit her and their brother at their place. I had a terrible headache, and their brother offered the second bed in the sister's room if I wanted to lay down. They live on campus, in a house where the rooms are set up dorm style, but she does not have a roommate. Before I could say anything, she gave him a side eye and said, no. I said, no worries, and went to lie in his room, same setup, extra bed that was my husband's, while he was in college. My husband told her that wasn't cool and asked her to apologize. She did, and she said she had just done some laundry and used the extra bed to dump her clean clothes, so that was the reason for her saying no, and it was not personal. I thanked her for apologizing and was happy to move on. I asked their brother for his opinion. He's a year younger than my husband, and he and I get along very well. He basically said that she's the only girl out of 4, so the family is used to her attitude and doesn't mind. For example, she will yell at them, call them names, demand things, hang up the phone on them when they can't fulfill her needs immediately, etc. Although my siblings and I didn't grow up treating each other that way, I know some do, so if they allow it, cool. But towards me, no thank you. The next time we saw her, which was the most recent, was when she came over after finding out that I was pregnant. She and my husband were spending a day together out of the house. I was too sick to leave the bed, and I couldn't help but to send a text and let him know how I felt. I told him that I should not feel that way in my own home, especially at such a vulnerable time. I don't know if any of you are familiar with HG, but it is debilitating. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Later on that day, he asked if she could come in and apologize. In hindsight, I really wish that I would have taken them up on that offer. But in the moment, I was so overwhelmed physically, mentally, and emotionally that I told him it was not a good time for me.